Tonight's all about finishing the rock sliders. We'll show you how he painted them, mounted them up.
You know, no matter what I do, the internet's gonna say it was wrong, right?
And man, do they look good.
Alright, so I've got a couple of brackets made up for each side to clamp the chassis rail. The kit from DIY Customs comes with a flat steel plate to make these up, and the idea again is that you can set it up exactly how you want it for your car. So I decided to go with these. I've seen them on a few mates' cars and I know they're solid, and I didn't want to weld to the chassis. And it comes with the end-notched steel tube. Again, allowing you to set the angle you want on these sliders, so you can go right up on a high angle, which will give you more body protection, but you sort of lose the ability to use it as a step. I'm going to keep it on a pretty low angle because I want access to the roof rack. Yeah, so I've made up these saddles out of the flat plate that comes with the kit. They're going to slide up over the chassis rail. The front bracket, the chassis on the Patrol actually dives in to clear the front wheels obviously. So we'll make up a bracket. Once these are on there, I'm going to rig up a bracket to basically the radius arm mount. You can set up a bracket to that plate that comes out to mount that. So that's going to be solid as well. Alright, let's get into it. So I used 1/2-inch bolts, which you probably could have used smaller, but I like over-engineering things. Now the question in my mind is how much clearance to give it to the sill, right? So being a slider, I want it to be pretty much under the edge of the sill, that inner rail, so that if it does drop down, it's actually protecting what it's meant to protect, because on the inside of that's a big hollow to the chassis rail pretty much. So I reckon somewhere just there, but I'm going to have to give it enough clearance that A, the body's mounted to the chassis on rubber mounts, so there's a slight bit of flex there, not that it's much, and B, if it does impact on something, there is going to be a little bit of flex in the steel, so I don't want the slider to actually hit the sill if it does end up with weight on it at some point when it's doing its job. And that angle's actually, I like that angle.
I like it, yeah.
A little bit, it might come down a touch. You know, no matter what I do, the internet's going to say it was wrong, right?
It's entirely up to you, Dan, remember that. Entirely.
Well, this is true. Again, custom. Set it up exactly how you want it.
Yeah. Can you get an idea for how your foot's going to sit when you open the door up?
I don't really use side steps anyway.
Right.
Just because I'm tall enough to sort of...
Wait till it's 4 inches in the air, Dan.
Yeah, 3 inches, going up 3. There is enough step there. Half the reason I wanted the extra kicker at the back there, other than for the bit more body protection, is that the roof rack's right there. It's kind of perfectly lined up with it.
Yep.
So that gives you a bit more of a step when you're trying to put your swag on the roof or whatever. I might drop the angle down.
Yeah.
Just a touch.
Yeah.
It's not going to be so much of an issue when the car's a bit higher, but when you're going over often the washouts, or whoops, whatever you want to call them, on the forestry tracks and that, and you're trying to go over and that's where you'll bottom out on the centre. And so I'd like these to be pretty much level with the chassis rail so that the weight's sort of even. You're not sitting if you do bottom out, not that I intend on doing it, but it happens, that you don't sit all the weight on the slider and seesaw the car on that, that it's sort of level. Plus, I'd rather lose the least amount of ground clearance possible. That is, in that state, about 5mm lower than the chassis, which is, I'm happy with that. The plan here is basically, as you can see, I've set the whole slider up on some jack stands. Got it sitting at the level from the body that I want it to be at and the angle. And now I'm going to set up the 2 rear brackets. So I've got those saddles up on the chassis rail. I'm going to cut the tubes to length, tack them in place, and then from there work out how I want to mount the front mount. It's going to be different there because it actually has to bolt through the plate rather than clamp over the chassis rail. And the other thing to work out is the front and rear offset. So these are 1750 long, but DIY Customs will make them pretty much to any measurement you need to suit your car. So I got them 1750 just because I wanted the little bit of extra protection at the rear. I wanted to sort of bring them out as far as I could without having issues with them going into the wheel arch itself. There was heaps of clearance to the tyre, but just for things like rocks and that getting caught between them, I'm pretty much going to run it central on the sill. I will measure it so I get both sides even. Happy with that, Cody?
Yeah, they look good from up here.
Schmick. I like it. I like it a lot. Aussie Arvos sticker right there. Right there. So these are supplied, 3 of these for each side, come with the kit. They're 300 long, they're already end notched to suit the sliders. So once you make up your brackets, like I've set the slider up on the stands, you just measure between your bracket, however you want to set that up, and your slider. Again, you can set up the distance and cut them off to suit. Tack them on and it should be sweet. It's nice to be right every once in a while. Wow, that's mint. Once again proving that you don't need all the equipment in the world to put these together. I'm using an F-clamp, which your chippy mate will lend you, and a hammer, which if you've got a GQ Patrol, you do have a hammer. Now, how do we feel about that and the fuel tank? The internet's going to get upset with that. It's alright, it doesn't leak. There's only like a minimal chance of explosion, so we should be fine. This is why I like working on diesels. Okay, now things to note. Disconnect your battery, negative or positive, negative just easier, before welding anything on your car. In a modern car, you run the risk of burning out a computer, which gets very expensive very fast. In something early like this, you can pop a diode in the alternator, which will drop your voltage to like 10.5 volts if you drop one of them, or vice versa. The more damage you do, either way you're up for an alternator. You can get away with it. It's not like every time, if you don't disconnect the negative and you weld, you might get away with it or you might not. Basically it's just a thing of electricity following the path of least resistance, and if you put the earth clamp somewhere else on the body, it'll try and earth the welder through the alternator, through the battery. You just disconnect the negative, can't go through there, that's easy. And put your earth clamp as close to what you're welding as possible. So I've got it on the tube of the slider, so that's easy. Don't go doing something silly like putting it on a hub and earthing it through bearings or something like that. It has happened. People like welding bracing on their diff and earth it to the wheel bearing. What could go wrong? That's just anti-splatter spray. Stop any of the splatter off this trying to stick to the chassis rail or anywhere else. More so to make it look pretty than anything. 50% blind welding. Have tacks and nothing's on fire. Success. Stayed at the angle I wanted it to be at. Nice and even all out the rail there. What do you reckon, Paddy? Is she sweet?
Looks pretty good to me.
Sick. Can't argue with that. It's getting me more excited. I want it noted that at no point did I say this one was staying stock. Did not say that. It's not on record. It didn't happen. Alright? Alright, so that's everything tacked in place. I've got all my brackets set up. The front bracket actually ended up being easier than I thought it'd be. The saddles were actually almost harder, more so the rear one on this side just because of the fuel tank, as I said earlier. Yeah, everything's tacked in place, so we're going to take them off now, weld everything off. I've got some mesh, so you can run these however you like. You can run them bare like this, which a lot of people do. I want to run mesh on them because, for a couple of reasons. One, I want to stop sticks and other things getting up between the rock sliders and the body. And the other thing is for grip, as I said earlier, trying to get on the roof rack and that sort of thing. Yeah, that's it. Again, being a custom slider, you can build them however you want. So I'm going to take them off, weld everything off, cut the mesh to size, tack that on, prime everything, and then we'll be ready for paint. So that's the DIY Customs rock slider kit assembled. I've gone ahead and added some mesh, which is going to act as a step, as well as provide me a little bit of extra body protection from sticks, small rocks, all that sort of thing flicking up and hitting the sills. Now, this is Dominator. This is what we're going to be spraying the rock sliders with. It's a super hard wearing urethane bed and body liner paint. So it's designed for in the back of ute trays and all that sort of thing. So it's super hard wearing. It's going to be grouse for our rock sliders, put up with all the stone chips, sticks, rocks, anything that I can throw at them. And it's also going to make it, I think, super good to step on, bit of extra grip, and a really tough look. So this is everything that comes in the kit. You've got your resin, your activator, and the gun to go with it all. So this is basically your paint itself. This is pretty much a hardener. You mix the two of them together, shake the can well, and then screw it straight on the bottom of this underbody gun along with the pickup tube, and you're ready to spray. That. Woo! That's easy. Alright guys, we're here in the paint booth, and as you can see, I've already sprayed these with a primer. They're hanging up, their primer is tacked off, and we're ready to go straight over the top of them with the Dominator. Alright, so I've got one of the test pieces that I used to set my welder up before I did the rock sliders. I'm going to spray that first just to get my pattern right. You use between 50 and 70 psi to spray this, so I've got my air pressure reg set at about 60. This is also my first time ever using an underbody gun and a urethane paint, so we're going to see how it goes, hence why I'm testing it on that before I spray it on the sliders.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is awesome. Look at that finish.
That finish is mad. It's going to look tough as. So easy. It doesn't run.
Yeah, it just goes on.
Just goes straight on.
Alright, sweet.
So I'm going to start by spraying the underside of the sliders, get my pattern right there, and then we'll move on to the top.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
that it? That's done.
That's mad. That finish is awesome. Like it's literally in a slight breeze, hanging from where the gap where a gate goes, and I got a most even finish. That's awesome. Just paint your Pajero in it, Paddy.
Yeah, I know.
Outside. Oh mate, we're winning, Paddy. I love it. I'm going to paint everything in that from now on. That's awesome. There you go. Alright, that's the sliders all done and painted. The light is fading, as you may have noticed. I guess that's what happens when you get these things done in an Arvo after work. But I only went through 1 can of the Dominator paint spraying those 2 sliders, and I laid that stuff on thick, so I've got to be happy with that. Really easy to spray, even though the paint booth wasn't quite, you know, operating. But super easy to spray, so can't complain there. And I think for, you know, a few afternoons work, I've got a set of amazing looking rock sliders. So the bit you've all been waiting for, let's see what they look like on the Patrol. So that is the sliders on the car. I am super happy with how they came out, especially for something I did myself. Pretty easy job. A few minor things I'd probably point out is to double check the clearance to the sills when you're setting up your brackets. Again, after you weld everything, before you paint, check all that, because if you've welded before, you'll know the heat makes things move. Other than that, super easy kit to put together. Again, everything being pre-bent and pre-cut for you makes it super easy. Hardest part of the job was just setting it up to the car, and even that's easy. So as well as looking good on the car, these are super sturdy. I put a bottle jack under them before I painted them, just because I wanted to check how much flex there would be in them, so I knew when I set it up to the sill they weren't going to flex up and hit the sill. I literally jacked up half the car and they didn't move, so you got to be happy with that. I'm happy that if it rests on a rock or a tree stump or something, it's not going to do any damage to the body. In terms of practicality, this little kicker at the back here, which helps to protect the rear portion of the body there, also acts as a great step to get to the roof rack, so that worked out well. I'm really happy with the look. The paint came out mint. It's going to be tough and hard wearing, so yeah. So if you guys are keen on getting a set of these for yourself, I got this kit through DIY Customs out of Sydney. They're about $400 to start with, and depending on what sort of options you want in the sliders, can vary from there. Super easy kit to put together, and again, you get to know that at the end of the day you did it yourself, which I think is awesome, and you set them up to suit your car. The paint's from Dominator, which is going to be super hard wearing, and I think really completes the look of the whole slider, and yeah, it's sort of the start of what I want this car to be, so get around it. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. I'm super happy to have some BARWORK protecting the body on the GQ. If you guys enjoyed the video, give us a like, get subscribed, because next time we're getting taller and we're putting some tyres on that actually grip.